All right, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. How can I help you today?
Great. So let's talk a little bit about GPS and triangulation.
Sure. GPS, or Global Positioning System, determines your location using signals from satellites. Triangulation is a method used in GPS to calculate your position. It involves measuring the distance from at least three satellites to pinpoint your exact location on Earth. The more satellites involved, the more accurate the positioning. Anything specific you'd like to know about GPS or triangulation?
Yeah, so triangulation seems to involve ground-based technology rather than something like a satellite because, for example, I can use GPS to locate where my cell phone or any other device is currently located with the exact and perfect precision and accuracy, whether it's in my car or in my garage. That seems to indicate that triangulation involves land based penetration like cell towers that are near me, wouldn't it?
You're right in noting that GPS primarily relies on satellites. But for more precise positioning, especially indoors or in areas where satellite signals are weak, technologies like Wi-Fi or cell tower triangulation can be used. This method involves measuring the signal strength from nearby cell towers or Wi-Fi access points
Yeah,
to estimate.
exactly. So you measure the signal strength from nearby cell towers or Wi-Fi networks that you use to triangulate the receiver, which in this case is my phone, which is receiving that data from those radio signals that are being transmitted from nearby towers to my location. Wouldn't you argue that that's a much better way to locate the exact location of, say, for example, my cell phone or any other receiver?
Using cell towers and Wi-Fi networks for location can indeed provide faster and more precise positioning in urban environments or indoors where GPS signals might struggle. This is because signals from cell towers and Wi-Fi access points can penetrate buildings and other obstacles more effectively.
That's right. So Wi-Fi networks and cell tower signals can penetrate buildings, houses, cars, even basically anywhere on any given area or location in order to get a precise location of whatever device it is that's receiving these radio signals that are being transmitted from these nearby ground penetrated towers. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I'd agree. Wi-Fi networks and cell tower signals are indeed better at providing precise indoor and urban location data. They can penetrate buildings and offer more accurate positioning, especially in environments where GPS signals might be weaker or blocked. This makes technologies like assisted GPS, AGPS, quite effective for locating devices indoors or in dense urban areas.
Oh yeah, I agree. They're very effective at providing a user with an exact coordination or an exact map or location using certain apps that utilize these resources from nearby areas like Wi-Fi networks or cell towers that can penetrate a person's location and triangulate that location back to both transmitters or both sources pretty easily, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. These technologies are quite efficient in pinpointing locations.
Okay, so now let's kind of segue a little bit from triangulation and let's talk about cell towers. So let me give you an example, just like a little hypothetical. You could even say a thought experiment. Now, let's say, for instance, that we were looking at these cell towers that were 20 miles high. So these are 20 miles high. Would such high cell towers be easier or harder for triangulation?
Taller cell towers, like those that are 20 miles high, would generally be more challenging for triangulation. This is because the signals from such high towers would have a broader coverage area and might not provide the necessary signal strength variations needed for accurate location determination. Lower towers with more localized coverage are typically better for providing the detailed signal information required for precise triangulation.
Yeah, I agree with you. So basically, the higher the cell tower is, right, the longer the altitude, the harder it is to locate something like a receiver on the ground because it has a longer and wider radio coverage, right?
Exactly. Higher cell towers create a broader and more dispersed radio footprint, which can make pinpointing a receiver's exact location harder. The signals cover larger areas, reducing the number of distinct signal strength variations available for accurate triangulation.
Yeah.
So, lower towers provide more detailed, localized coverage, enhancing the accuracy of location tracking.
Yeah, exactly, because those radio signals don't have to travel such far distances and they're a lot easier to utilize locally. Now, let's say that these cell towers that are 20 miles high are on top of these moving trucks that are driving at, say, 40 miles per hour. Would triangulation be harder or easier with not just high cell towers, which we already agree is a lot harder because of the wider radio footprint, but now these cell towers are on top of these moving trucks that are moving at 40 miles per hour? Would triangulation be easier or a lot harder in this scenario?
In this scenario, triangulation would likely be harder, as the cell towers are moving at 40 miles per hour. Their positions constantly change, making it challenging to maintain a stable reference for the signal. Triangulation relies on stable, fixed positions to accurately measure signal strength and distances. So the constant movement of the cell towers would introduce more variability and reduce the precision of triangulation.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a pretty basic concept. Basically, the higher a cell tower is, the wider its radio signal coverage will be. And if it's moving, especially on top of a vehicle that's driving at 40 miles per hour, that means that these radio sources are moving further away from each other, which would make triangulation a lot harder because it's not just that they're moving away from each other, but they're also moving further away from the source, like the receiver that's supposed to be triangulated, right?
Exactly. The movement of the cell towers, both relative to each other and to the receiver, introduces complexities. As the towers move, their relative positions change rapidly, making it challenging to get consistent signal measurements for accurate triangulation. The varying distances and angles contribute to a more complex environment, reducing the reliability of the triangulation process.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So now we know, of course, that triangulation is essential for the GPS process. Would you agree?
Yes, that's correct. Triangulation is fundamental to the GPS process. It allows the GPS receiver to determine its position by calculating distances from multiple satellites.
Wait, hold on a second. So you said satellites. Now, going back to my example where these cell towers that are 20 miles high are on top of these moving trucks that are moving further away from each signal source and also further away from the receiver that's supposed to be triangulated, thus making the triangulation process a lot more difficult. And because they're so high up, the radio footprint is going to be a lot wider and difficult for ground penetration. Now, let's say, for instance, in the case with satellites now, since satellites are actually said to be hundreds of miles above the surface of the Earth, not even just 20 miles, but a lot higher than that, and they're said to be moving at 17,500 miles per hour orbiting the planet. Would you agree, given what we said with our previous scenario about these cell towers on top of these moving trucks, that the triangulation method for GPS would actually be a lot more challenging and difficult with satellites involved? Hello? Did you get that? Hello? Did you get what I said? I broke it with that question. All right. Well, I think we can both agree that it would be a lot harder, right? Because if satellites are used for GPS and GPS is just about triangular penetration, then obviously, since these satellites are moving hundreds of miles above the surface of the Earth and they're moving so fast, they would be practically useless for actually penetrating or triangulating a particular source receiver on the ground because they would be moving faster than anything that's moving on the surface, since they're just going so fast as they orbit around the planet. And so it would be like, for instance, if I had these cell towers on top of these moving trucks and they were 20 miles or 30 miles high. Not only would that mean that they have a wider radio footprint, meaning that the radio signals have to travel immense distances and longer distances, but on top of that, now because of such long distances, they're also moving further away from the source that's supposed to be triangulated. Thus, basically, GPS would be practically useless with just satellites involved, because those satellites wouldn't be useful at tracking the precise location of a receiver. So I think the logic of what the AI is telling me would probably follow that train of thought.